Some Democrat elected officials decided to show up on cable news last night to talk about the indictment of James Comey, and their response, well, it's about what you'd expect. Here's the aptly named Dick Blumenthal from Connecticut.
The old saying, what comes around goes around. Mm-hmm. You know, today it's a Republican president, but degrading the democracy and ruining, literally perverting the great ethos and tradition of the Department of Justice, where I was in awe when I walked through those halls as a federal prosecutor. I think it's time for Republican colleagues to say enough is enough, and we are going to push them and do it.
What goes around comes around, says Dick Blumenthal. You do this to us, we're going to do it back to you. Okay, thanks for letting us know where you stand on this, but just so you know, if you're keeping score, you've already done it to us. Stop pretending like you didn't. Dick stayed right where he was there in his own home studio. CNN decided to hook up to it a little later in the evening.
Congressman from California in the House Judiciary Committee. And he was saying, that Congress needs to stand up. And I want to ask you in this context, what can you do right now as a Democratic senator about this?
I can ask questions of the Department of Justice, which we will do. We can support colleagues and others on the Republican side who may be inclined, I hope they will be, to draw a line here and protest. Obviously, I have no role in court. I was a prosecutor for 4.5 years as U.S. Attorney in Connecticut. I also was Attorney General for 20 years. The most consequential decisions I made were whether to charge someone, because nobody ever fully recovers from those charges. A lot of people believe that an acquittal just means there was some technical issue. So I think it's important to encourage the private bar to step up. Donald Trump made deals with a number of the major law firms in the country. They ought to rip them apart and say enough is enough. I would encourage attorneys in the Department of Justice to stand up for their conviction and conscience, as Eric Siebert did. He's the U.S. attorney who resigned rather than bring those charges. And as a member of the United States Senate, I'm going to go to the floor of the Senate. I'm going to go to committee meetings. I'm going to speak privately. I'm going to protest. And I am going to seek legislation we're formulating right now that may well prevent some of this perversion of justice. We are writing legislation that will give remedies and rights to people who are victims of malicious prosecution. We have to provide safeguards because we've clearly seen how the ordinary norms are defied by this autocratic president. We're on the way to tyranny if we permit it to go forward.
Senator Richard.
On the way to tyranny if we let it go forward. Let what go forward? Oh, you know what just happened for the last 10 years when we were in charge. It's like they don't even know what they're saying. It's like they are not even aware of what's going on. And by the way, Aaron Burnett, there's another question you forgot to ask. You've looked at the charges. Do you believe that James Comey is guilty of this? I mean, isn't that relevant here? All of the analysis you're seeing from people in the media and from Democrats don't even take into account whether James Comey broke the law. As far as they're concerned, that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if James Comey broke the law. Donald Trump demanded that the Attorney General bring these charges against him. That's the problem. No. Actually, no. You ask any American right now, if somebody broke the law and they haven't been charged for breaking the law, especially something that is, tantamount to abusing their power as one of the most powerful law enforcement officers in the country, the director of the FBI, if that person broke the law and the president makes sure that they get arrested and indicted so that they can face those charges in a court of law, who's at fault here? The president for making sure that the law is being enforced? Or the guy who broke the law? And I think most people are going to say the guy who broke the law. You want your president enforcing the law. And that's the one common denominator in all of these reactions here is they don't even want to touch that question. They don't even want to speak to it. Did James Comey lie? Did he illegally leak classified information for political purposes to hurt Donald Trump, the duly elected president of the United States? Were those violations of federal law? Should he pay a price? None of those questions are asked. And that tells you they know the answer to that question. They know that James Comey is dirty, that he's a liar, that he deserves to go to jail, and that's the last thing they want to talk about. No, but Trump. Dick Blumenthal wasn't alone. You know, when CNN is really desperate and they got to get a Democrat to give him some sort of, fodder for their viewers, for their rabid, out-of-control viewers, you know who they can find? Always reliable Eric Swalwell.
And by the way, the president's saying he has no control here. He has all of the control here. He's the one who has been tweeting to the attorney general that Comey needs to be indicted. He's the one that fired the U.S. attorney who would not indict Comey. And so this is a very, very corrupt, corrosive act that the president is taking. And what I would just say to any prosecutor at the Department of Justice is it's not going away. As a member of the Judiciary Committee, I promise you, when Democrats are in the majority, we are going to look at all of this. And there will be accountability. And bar licenses will be at stake in your local jurisdiction if you are corruptly indicting people where you cannot prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt.
So Donald Trump is corrupt and he's abusing his power for bringing charges against James Comey for what, on the face of it, surely appears to be the violation of federal law. Trump's the corrupt one. But here comes Eric Swalwell saying, hey, all you lawyers out there, we're going to investigate you. We're going to come down on you like a ton of bricks, and you're going to lose your law license if you're involved in any of this. Now, who's the corrupt one in this picture? Donald Trump is holding to account one of the most famous men in America who was the top law enforcement officer in this country as the director of the FBI for abusing his power, leaking classified information for political purposes, and then lying about it when Congress was utilizing their oversight role. Eric Swalwell is intimidating and threatening unnamed, faceless lawyers who were just trying to do their job for the Justice Department because he wants them to tank the case. And we're told Trump's the corrupt one. Even more terrifying about what you just heard is the fact that Eric Swalwell is on the Judiciary Committee. Actually, that's almost as terrifying as this person having any role in Congress in oversight. Yes, that's right. CNN is so desperate they get Eric Swalwell, MSNBC, Jasmine Crockett.
I want the American people to know that when you stand up to a bully, you win. Do not back down. Do not bend. You allow them to go and wage their threats. If everybody starts to bend, for sure, what is left of our democracy will be gone. And unfortunately, that is exactly what he wants. And even more sadly, is that many of his followers agree with this. And I am thinking to myself, how is it that you can call yourself American or patriotic when you literally don't understand who we are as Americans, when you literally are okay with throwing out the Constitution, when you're okay with someone just deciding, you know what, this is the end result that I'm seeking. And so just figure out how to get there. One thing.
I mean, again, it's like it's Alice through the looking glass with this. It's like absolute Looney Tunes. I can't decide whether I'm the one on acid or they're the ones on acid. But I'm happy to get lectures on how to be a patriotic American from the likes of Jasmine Crockett, of all people, saying that it's a violation of the Constitution to indict the former FBI director for what is on the face of it, obvious violations of federal law. No. The only way to protect the Constitution is to make sure that people like James Comey get off scot-free without ever having to answer to criminal charges in a court of law. That's what will maintain our Constitution. These people are looking at our country through the lens of a toilet bowl. So there's Dick Blumenthal from the Senate. There's Eric Swalwell and Jasmine Crockett from the House. How about a former Obama administration official on the panel at CNN trying to lecture Ben Ferguson about law and order and who started it by waging lawfare against their opponents. Well, let's see what happens.
Agree, gentlemen, that Trump is trying to flex a muscle here. But the average American, my hometown, Galesburg, Illinois, the people who voted for Donald Trump want them to flex muscles for them, not for a political persecution. And right now,
I don't know this. I'm asking sincerely. Did you vote for Trump?
No, I did
Okay,
not.
raise your hand if you voted for Trump.
How
Just say,
many?
I did.
How
so
many
you
friends
have no
I
idea what
have
we
who
believe.
I talk to very regularly?
Dude, I love that Ben called her out on that. You know, the people in my hometown in Illinois who voted for Trump, they want him to. I'm sorry, you're going to speak for Trump voters right now? Someone who worked in the Obama White House? You understand Trump voters. You're going to speak for Trump voters. Who at this table voted for Trump? I love that Ben pulled that. That was a great moment. And of course, Ben was the only one to raise his hand because that's how these panels work, don't you know? It's a reflection of the American electorate, right? Because Trump lost 5-1. Isn't that right? I'm not so good with math.
No,
That's not. He
in
literally
Iowa,
ran
we are
on saying he was
losing
going to do this.
manufacturing plants in
He
Iowa.
literally
We
ran
want-
on saying there was
we
going to be
want
accountability for the
actual
abuse
change.
of justice.
And here we've got, he literally
did.
ran for 4 years saying
We have a
that,
montage. I'll put it
saying
earlier.
that
Can you
he
just
didn't
give her a
want.
second, please? Thanks.
He literally ran for 4 years saying that political persecution was awful, that he was a victim. It didn't hurt
He
him.
was.
He ended up as president of the United States,
He
and
fought
now
back.
he overturned, he has no outstanding indictments.
Think about this for a minute, what they're saying. He ran on how bad political persecution was, and he won. And so, you know, he should just walk away and forget. No. The underlying point is the people who persecuted him politically by using the rule of law should pay a price. Otherwise, they'll do it again. That's the whole point. And her argument here is, well, Trump won the election. Haven't they paid enough of a price? Trump's the president. Isn't that punishment enough? It's like they can't even hear themselves.
And now nobody wants him to go after more people.
That's absolutely not what he said.
A very
and what we
small
voted for.
percentage of the MAGA base will be happy with this.
You're also
Many
wrong.
people are very concerned about their economic
You
security.
can do two things
and
right
this
at
is
the same
not
time.
addressing that.
Donald Trump, and there was a montage played on CNN earlier today. He literally ran off saying there will be accountability for the abuse of power in the deep state, period. He said it by name, James Comey. He said he was a liar by name.
Yeah, well,
he said
okay,
it
let me-
at almost
that
every
was
campaign
his
rally.
priority.
No one should be
Hold on one
surprised about
second.
today.
Hold on.
That's right. In the exact same way that Attorney General Lynch in New York and District Attorney Bragg in Manhattan ran for office saying, I'll get Trump. I don't care what the crime is. I'll just figure something out. And they won. Listen, if that's politically viable and approved and celebrated on CNN, then Donald Trump specifically saying, listen, I'm not going to invent a crime. I know exactly what these guys did, and you know exactly what they did to me and to you and your vote. Because don't forget this. This isn't about what James Comey did to Donald Trump or did to people in the Trump administration. It's about what they did to the voters. You voted for a man to be president of the United States, and he never had the chance to actually be president without this cloud hanging over him, a cloud that James Comey helped create. And that is an assault on you because you didn't get a fully functioning president because he was always dealing with this. But Donald Trump ran saying, listen, you know what he did. And if you put me back into office, there will be accountability. And that's what this looks like. All right. A little bit more from our little Obama official here with Ben.
1 second. Let me just actually play.
Oh, sorry. Here we go.
Is you guys are setting up a very dangerous precedent. And no, I'm sorry. You think that we did all of the precedent
did.
setting. You think
You
that
guys went
that
pro in it. And
President
political
Obama.
persecution.
I
Y'all
worked
went
with
pro.
President Obama. Yeah?
Yeah.
You think President Obama set up...
Were they not spying
What?
on Donald Trump's campaign?
Oh, my
yes
Okay.
or no? It is a fact that
Russia tries
did
to
they get
interfere
FISA
in
warrants?
every
Yes or
election.
no? Oh, so
Russia
then therefore
tries to
it must be
interfere.
real,
So should
even
we
though it
know
wasn't.
what Russia is doing? Yes, 100%.
You accused
Guys.
Donald Trump
Oh.
of
Okay.
working
All right.
with the Russians.
Hold on a
and
second.
You knew it was a
All
lie.
right, Ben, you
But-
lost your chance.
There you go. And then, of course, Abby has to come in and shut Ben up. But yes, you know, what, you think we started this? You literally spied on the guy. and falsely accused him of working with the Russians. And it's, I think, which, by the way, the CNN audience, probably that's the first they've heard it. All right. So then Abby gets to confront Ben because it's 5-on-1, and Ben still beats them up.
The government just going after people for things they didn't do.
They
But
went
if
after
they
Donald
did, in
Trump for things
fact,
he didn't do.
but if they did in fact commit crimes, do you think they should be prosecuted for it?
If you commit a crime, regardless of party you're in, I think you should be prosecuted.
Okay, well then I think that really answers your question, Ben.
So do you think they
so the
entrapped? Do you
facts-
think James Comey was
the
there
facts-
to
listen,
entrap
the facts
General Flynn?
ought
Yes or
to-
no?
The facts
it's a
ought
simple
to matter.
question.
The
It
facts-
should matter, but you won't answer that question. You're presupposing it.
No, hold on. It's the government.
All right. Now, you just heard there where Ben Ferguson said, do you think that James Comey went to entrap General Flynn? See, these are, in my opinion, more indictments that are coming down the path here. But you heard Ben Ferguson say that. And Abby Phillips refused to answer the question, either because she knows the answer to that question or because she's unfamiliar with the story about how James Comey did, in fact, abuse his power in a corrupt way to entrap General Mike Flynn in the early days of the Trump administration. I'm not making that up. That's not some sort of fiction. It's not some sort of right-wing MAGA aluminum foil hat wearing fever dream. I have all this information because I saw this guy talking about it. That's James Comey. He was asked by Nicole Wallace while he was selling his book about the method used to question General Mike Flynn in the early days of the Trump administration that led to General Flynn having to resign and eventually pleading guilty to charges of lying to an FBI agent. Here's what James Comey said about that.
You look at this White House now, and it's hard to imagine 2 FBI agents ending up in the sit room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. The protocol, 2 men that all of us have perhaps increased appreciation for over the last 2 years. And in both of those administrations, there was process. And so if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals and who would be there. And I thought, it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over. And so we placed a call to Flynn, said, hey, we're sending a couple guys over. Hope you'll talk to them. He said, sure. Nobody else was there. They interviewed him in a conference room at the White House Situation Room, and he lied to them. And that's what he's now pled guilty to.
What did he think they were coming over there for?
I don't think he knew. No, we didn't tell him. Just said, we got sending over a couple of agents. I want to ask you some questions. I didn't have this conversation. My deputy director did, but hope you got a few minutes. You can sit down and talk to them. And he said, sure.
Listen to how they're laughing about that. Listen to how they're laughing about the entrapment and the bullying techniques and the deceitful approach that they took to interview General Mike Flynn, who was the national security advisor of Donald Trump. And it was to ask him about conversations that he had before Trump was inaugurated with the Russian ambassador. And the deputy that he's referring to is Andrew McCabe, who, by the way, got fired because he leaked classified information to the media. And he says that James Comey authorized that leak. James Comey denies it. And that's one of the indictments that James Comey is now facing. This escapade should be another one of the indictments that he should be facing as well. By the way, one other thing about that moment where FBI agents went to the White House in the Situation Room and 2-on-1 interviewed General Mike Flynn. Mike Flynn was alone. He had no witnesses, and they claimed that he lied. And that's what he ended up pleading guilty to after he was forced to resign from his position. The agent that went over and conducted the interview, his name is Peter Strzok. Peter Strzok, another person who was fired from the FBI in a cloud of shame and controversy because, of course, he was the one who was sending text messages to his girlfriend, Lisa Page, who he was cheating on with, about how they hated Donald Trump and how even if he won the election, they had an insurance plan and they were going to do whatever they could to undermine the Trump presidency. I'm paraphrasing, but you're familiar with Peter Strzok and his text messages. And, oh, by the way, as Mark Hemingway reported at Real Clear Politics, Real Clear Investigations at the time, Peter Strzok sent a memo about that interview with General Flynn ahead of time. And here's what it said. Before Flynn interview, FBI counterintelligence head wrote a memo asking, what is our goal? Truth/admission, or to get him to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired? The FBI agent who went to go interview General Flynn ahead of time said, so what do we want to do here? Do we want to get the truth out of him, or do we want to get him to lie so we can arrest him? What's our goal? FBI records of conversations are required to be filed within 5 days. They didn't submit this one for 3 months. Peter Strzok, later fired from the FBI in disgrace, was the interviewer. In text messages to his lover, Lisa Page, he told her he was trying not to completely rewrite the original record of Flynn's interview. That's how the FBI was run under James Comey. Does anybody here, anybody at all, feel bad for James Comey right now? Does anybody think that he doesn't maybe need to face some justice here and answer for his behavior and answer for how he ran the FBI? Anyone at all? I sure hope not.